If you're new here, go watch the introductory video linked in the description. Otherwise, stay here. Well, that sucked. The Addams Family is a 1992 game released as a tie-in with the film of the same name that released a year prior. This game was released on several other platforms, such as the NES, SNES, Sega Genesis, Game Gear, and Master System. Though out of these, the most ubiquitous one is most likely the NES version, as that was the version reviewed by Night for Red. If you haven't watched his video on it, I'd link it in the description. If you have watched it, I can attest that the Gameboy version is not better. And if you haven't, allow me to elaborate on why. We open on a short cutscene explaining that the family has been evicted from their house, and the place has been taken over by Tully, their attorney, who is trying to take their family fortune, with every member returning to the house to try and reason with him. But when Gomez gets there last, he finds the rest of his family is nowhere to be seen, prompting him to go searching, starting the game with him as our player character. And we are immediately greeted by a ghost coming in from the top of the screen. Yeah, this game has an issue with just placing enemies everywhere as a form of adding difficulty. In some locations, this can lead you to taking instant, unavoidable damage after a screen transition. It doesn't help that the main two enemies in most locations are fast and airborne with small hitboxes. The ghosts are reasonable, but the bats are tiny and take 2 attacks to kill, which especially sucks since every weapon in this game, bar the golf club, we'll get to that one later, has a limited pool of ammo. What makes this even worse is that enemies spawn as soon as you scroll over their spawn location, and if you kill them and then go back to where they spawn, they appear again, meaning you never really have enough space to get some distance between you and the pre-existing enemies, because moving back far enough to have some proper leeway will more often than not cause you to just get attacked on both sides. In some locations, this can lead you to having to deal with up to 6 separate enemies actively pursuing you at once. Pursuing enemies are especially bad in this game because during post-hit iframes, you straight up cannot attack, so if you don't have the space to get them to stop touching you, you'll just take damage with no way to fight back until you either die or somehow slip out. I'll be honest, as soon as I saw this game mostly gives you no direction when the enemy density is this high, I immediately bucked the blindest possible rule and looked up a walkthrough. I cannot be fucked to explore for where I'm supposed to go when walking around is this punishing. I immediately beeline for the graveyard, as that's what the guide I found told me to do. And as far as areas go, this one's pretty damn simple. Go left, jump over the gravestones, deal with the ghosts and bats, and if you can't do that, you better get learning because you never stop dealing with them. Eventually, you'll reach a doorway, which can be entered to initiate a boss fight with a lich that shoots insta-kill projectiles. You get 5 lives ever before all of your progress resets, and this game is a Metroidvania. Yes, I use save states. The only silver line is that every weapon in this game works on Mega Man rules, so your fire rate is only limited by how fast you can mash and how quick your projectiles are getting from point A to B. So if you can stay really close to the boss's weak spot, in this instance his face, without getting pelleted, you can just hurl daggers at inhuman speeds to kill him as fast as possible. As a sidebar, why the hell does Gomez look so evil in this game? He looks like he's antagonizing me. After killing the Lich, you free Wednesday, who gives you the golf club, the worst weapon in the game, with the sole redeeming quality of having infinite ammo. I assume this is payback on her father for naming her after a bottom 2 day of the week. After we go back to the house and walk down into the boiler room and... Yeah, this place looks like it'd burn you up. I wonder what the rats are doing in here. Oh yeah, the rats. They're pretty easy to deal with. Just jump on them and stun them and then hit them with your golf club. One of the only tasks that thing is good for. I like this level more than the mansion and the graveyard areas, mostly because the enemies here are way less annoying. Oh, also there's a Wolfman potion, which makes you extremely fast. Like, to the point that in the guide there was a warning not to run off a ledge. At the downside of disabling the club, like all other transformations do, unfortunately. The boss of this area is a devil. His gimmick is that he can't be damaged while moving. His pattern is that he stays still for about 3 seconds and then tries to move to the exact place on the screen you were when he started moving, so you gotta dodge him. He also deals contact damage with no iframes, draining your entire health bar from a combined total of 2 seconds of contact. After dealing with him, we free Granny, who gives us hot coals. I use these a bit, and they seem to not be meaningfully different than the knives, other than one scenario we'll get to later. We then walk our way up the mansion to the floor with the river entrance to the left. In the corner here is another potion. This one makes us a fishman and has the letter F on it for some reason. This hole in the wall here leads us to the river. Swimming in this game has an oxygen bar, because of course it does, and is otherwise exactly like the ground movement, except pressing up on the D-pad makes you float upward with no animation. Yeah, those stalactites aren't background details, they're ceiling spikes. For some reason, this game has a decent amount of ceiling spikes for a platform without a lot of ways of gaining height. The boss for this level is a squid, and he's piss easy. He's completely stationary and has a good 3 seconds of downtime between each attack. So you can just wait for him to retract his tentacles, spam knives at him from breath smelling distance, and then retreat to the platform until he dies. After he keels over, we free Lurch, who gives us ice cubes. These are completely useless as an offensive option and are only really useful in one area. We then head down to the second floor to the right and then up into the meat locker. Yeah, there are cleavers being thrown, just jump over them. To our left is another potion. This one makes us Frankenstein and absorbs a bunch of hits before wearing off, letting us take health damage again. After we enter, you'll notice that we've hit the mandatory 90s platformer ice level, and it's about as bad as you think it'd be. As this game controls like Mega Man, this also serves as a pretty shitty injection of momentum mechanics into a game that was built from the ground up without one. The ice physics also apply in the air, for what I can only assume is because the devs couldn't be fucked to write them to only apply at the ground. Here we have the only area that the ice cubes are actually needed for. You need to use them to ferry you across if you don't want to lose your Frankenstein power up, since trying to swim across normally will turn you into a human popsicle. Now, these sections where you go down a slope and get sent barreling forwards are the best part of this level. Shame they only use it twice, and the rest of the level is filled with everything else. At the end here, we actually don't save anybody. You do get the icicles weapon, though. These function pretty much the same as the daggers. Next, we go to the top floor to the right and enter the toy box. This is hands down my favorite area in the game. There's a lot of enemy variety, no one enemy is too annoying, and the level gimmick is fairly telegraphed. There's these boxes with faces they use as platforms. The disgruntled looking ones function as regular pieces of solid terrain, but the smiling ones can be walked through horizontally and from the bottom, and disappear when you stand on them, only giving you enough time to jump. They seem to be coded specifically to disappear when you're about to walk onto one, and I say this because sometimes the disintegrating animation plays on a tile in front of you on the floor where no block is present. I also just really like the theming here, and as an added bonus, the music here is good as well. Good shit. No joke, that theme made me start playlists of good music for these games, so I'd also check that out if you haven't. The boss here is a teddy bear with a huge mace. He can only be damaged by hot coals, but if you have those, he's pretty easy to take down by just going to the top platform and getting behind him to spam attack. Defeating him frees Pugsley, who looks like my army vet uncle with strong opinions on the Vietnamese. He gives us the lair blocks, which have no practical use at this point. Don't worry, Pugsley, you'll get your spotlight soon. Exiting the toy box and going left brings us to the attic, the simultaneous shortest and worst section in the game. And that's because this one contains more fucking bats. I would go as far as to say that the worst enemy to deal with one of is the bats, and they're everywhere here. If your most common enemy is also the hardest to deal with, you're probably doing something wrong. This area is unique in that most of the movement you'll be doing is upwards, but the downside to this is that the bats can fly and you can't, meaning that they're way better suited to traversing this area than you are, and therefore way harder to evade. And for reasons I mentioned earlier, if you can't evade an enemy in this game, you're just dead. Getting to the top of this area and just kind of jumping through the ceiling will initiate a boss fight with a mind-controlled Fester. This boss fight also requires the hot coals, but this time you need them to knock him back. The gimmick here is that there's lightning on the far right end of the screen that you need to keep him in range of, since that's the only thing that can actually damage him, all while he spits fireballs that kill you instantly. Of all the ideas here, you just couldn't resist reusing insta-kill projectiles? Really? After we shock some sense into him, Fester snaps back to normal with a splitting headache and probable erectile dysfunction, and gives us a hint that the path to Morticia is now open. Heading down to the first floor and going all the way to the right and down again will put us in the cellar, the final area in the game. This place is full of cheap traps and unclear hitboxes. I was expecting the final stretch to be hard, absolutely, but most of this stuff just feels bad to interact with. Spikeboards and guillotines fall from the ceiling, fall too fast for me at least to react, and deals a whole heart of damage. Maces swing around and knock you back when you get hit, which wouldn't be too bad if they weren't mostly placed around precision platforming areas covered in spikes with hitboxes that definitely feel way too big. The saw blades actually aren't too bad, definitely the best obstacle in this area. The boss of this area is Tully, the attorney from the intro, with Morticia dangling from a rope over a cauldron to the left. Tully will throw a dagger at you and then either stand, duck, or most likely jump. These daggers work like the devil boss from the boiler room in that they give you no iframe, so if you stand still after he throws one of them, you will die from full health as it flies across you. These guys really can't design a good boss fight for the life of them, can they? After making this guy look constipated, we free Morticia, ending the game after a short ending sequence. Overall, this game kinda sucked, but not too bad. It had a lot of enjoyable aspects, and its style is genuinely very charming. I especially like how Gomez literally flips his shit when he dies. But the entire thing is bogged down by relentlessly cheap enemy and level design. For my personal rating, I give this a 2 out of 7, as I would have almost certainly just not finished it if not for save states giving me infinite lives. But for the enthusiast rating, I give this a 4 out of 7. This game is the harshest variety of Nintendo hard, and I'd be lying to act like there wasn't a market for that. But there are other games out there with that appeal that only aren't as hard because they're actually good. I mentioned Nitro Rad's review of this game's NES version earlier, and I think he'd like this version for the same reason why he liked that one. So I had good reason to assume that this game would be a hit with the right audiences. Stay tuned for next time, where we visit the Addams family again. It's Bugsland time. Let's go.